Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Tommy Gilmore with Noisy Bird Digital Marketing. I'm joined today with Ben from Big Ben's Moving and Storage. Thanks for being here, Ben.
I'm glad we made it happen. Came all the way down and it's been great getting to know you. So I'm excited to talk shop today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So we're actually here. You guys have a cool podcast studio. Like you said, we're down in St. George. I came on location today, so I'm excited to be here and to learn a little bit more about Big Ben's and all that. So first order of business is, can I call you Big Ben or do you prefer Large Benjamin? What's better?
Well, you call me whatever you want. I'll answer to anything. It's kind of a funny backstory. I didn't come up with the name Big Ben.
Okay.
When I was a teenager, my dad was trying to teach me hard work, and he printed business cards that said Big Ben's Moving.
Oh, okay.
So he gets all the credit. I don't think I'm that big or anything. Like I guess I'm above average sized guy, but yeah, all credit goes to my dad. It's too late to change the brand. We're Big Ben's.
No, I love it. I think that's a great branding, and Dad did a good job, so kudos to Dad. So you started moving, it sounds like as a teenager then.
Yeah, my grandma, she was the marketing director for a rest home.
Okay.
And she found that the movers that she had the options to use were either big van lines that were kind of impersonal and overpriced, or kind of local shady guys. Think of like your typical mover, right? Like a little rough around the edges. And, she was dealing with old people that were relying on her for help. Like they come to her when they can't do anything on their own, and they need someone they can implicitly trust. And so that's kind of how the inception of the business happened. Was she had a need. My parents were trying to teach me hard work, and I couldn't hold down a regular job because I was playing sports.
Okay.
So with them, they kind of slowly showed me how to take care of customers and how to work hard and things like that. They never had a moving company. My dad works at the hospital, and he's awesome at what he does, but he was never like a mover. People ask me if I got my start with a moving company, but we literally learned from scratch that way.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of hard work. That's something that I think a lot of us as business owners, that's one of our core values, right? We're like, this is my business. I'll work 80 hours a week to get it off the ground and get it moving. And so I think what a lot of people watching might wonder is, how do you instill that as a core value as you scale? Like, how do you help maybe promote that in your employees and your company culture and things like that?
Yeah, I think just when it comes to hard work, we'll talk about working smart as well, but with working hard, that's just a values thing. Mm-hmm. Like we had our full company meeting on Tuesday, and just talking about, look, if you're the type of guy that once you get to that next raise, you're going to coast for a while because you know that, there's probably not another one coming in the next couple of weeks or months. It's like, just leave right now. But if you're the type of guy that tries to over-deliver on every single thing, you're going to rise to the top.
Totally.
And one of the reasons that we want to scale to serve more customers, but we also want to scale to carve out careers, carve out wealth for everyone that works here. And we're building something big enough that people can come work here and have, a career that has no ceiling.
Yeah.
And so I think just that's something that we've done really well at, is paying people well, making sure there's a good culture so that you can find those people that are willing to come work hard. Mm-hmm. That's one of our big keys to success.
I like that a lot. I like the idea of, hey, you have to talk about it, right? I think that sometimes we as owners, we're like, this is our core value and everybody knows it. But if we don't talk about it, if we don't instill that and say, hey, this is what this is and this means to us, people can't get on board because it's not communicated.
For sure. I 100% agree. You
guys have been in business now for a while, a long time it sounds like. How many years in business are we talking?
I think we got licensed and insured in 2017-ish.
Okay.
So 7 or 8 years now. As a side hustle before that, but that's as long as we've been a legit business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously in almost 8 years now, I'm sure it hasn't just been sunshine and rainbows. I'm sure that there's been growing pains and things like that. what has been the biggest challenge thus far, and what did you do to overcome that?
Yeah, I think to run a moving company, you kind of have to be a psychopath.
Okay.
Like you have to take so many punches and take so much stress just because you're dealing with people on the most stressful day, and you really have to work hard to create a great experience, you know. So right now our business has expanded to storage as well. So we have a private equity firm and we buy up storage facilities. And people, when we're buying storage businesses, the secret's out. Everyone knows they're great. We have to have a bidding war for a moving company. We buy those on a discount. We bought a couple moving companies because they're so stress intensive, you know.
Yeah.
So kind of getting to, you know, a couple like key issues, right? Like there's the issues that happen. Like you get a call at 4 a.m. that your truck hit ice, or you get your insurance hiked up so much that you know, maybe you don't make any money for a couple months. Like I think those are a lot of the things where people turn back and say like, okay, this isn't worth it. I'll go back to a job or I'll try something different. But what I've developed is just a really good, I call it a triage skill set.
Okay.
And I always tell it. Best way to explain it is if you can picture yourself as like an army doctor where you're on the battlefield with like 3 people bleeding.
Uh-huh.
Like this one's for sure gonna live, this one's for sure gonna die, but this is where I can do the most good right now.
Yeah.
And just doing that and focusing on that and having that closure, because there's always like, you know, there's always something big looming. There's always little things that would be easier for you to tackle, but just working in your highest and best use as much as possible and checking in on that is kind of our philosophy.
I love that. And especially as the owner and the person that you're the grease, right? You make everything move and happen. And so if you're not really honed in on, hey, these are the 2 or 3 things today or this week or this month that I need to happen. I need to make these things happen. If I'm getting distracted by all these other things, these things just don't happen, right? And then things get set back or timelines don't happen, customers are ticked off, whatever, right?
We do something in our company, top 5. So I'll check in with my CEO, because each company has a CEO, and I'll check in with them. What's your top 5 priorities for the week?
Mm-hmm.
And then I will follow up with them at the end of the week to see what they got through. And if they come to me with a list, and I'll say, okay, your number 3 is actually number 1,
Mm-hmm.
and your number 2, let's take that off the list. That's not even important.
Yeah.
So we can kind of prioritize, and they have crystal clear like direction of what the priority is for me, for what's mission critical to the company. And that way they're not spinning their wheels on other stuff, or maybe they push back and say, well, here's why I think this is important. Let's have a dialogue, you know?
Yeah.
So, and then in turn, they should go and do that with their direct reports. So the CEO will go to the other executives, and then the executives will go to the people they manage,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of get a good idea for what their top 5 are for the week. We also, a tactical book we follow is Traction, where you set your rocks, like your most important priorities for the quarter.
Okay.
And so we all have a couple of those as well, but those are kind of the 2 tactical things we do to stay organized and on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
As you grow, it gets really tough, so
Yeah.
you kind of have to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I love, this is really high level stuff, right? Like this is, you're taking a bird's eye view, and I think a lot of times as a business owner, you can get really in the weeds. You're working in your business too much, you're not working on your business here from a higher level. And so if you take the time, you say, hey, you know, like you said, these are the 3 things I want to accomplish this quarter. All right, then I need to accomplish this thing this month to check that part of the list, and you move down, and then this week, what am I going to do to move that forward?
Oh yeah, and it's delayed gratification as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Maybe you're clearing 10 grand a month,
Mm-hmm.
and you get the decision like, am I going to stay where I'm at, which is very comfortable, or am I going to try to scale to the next level? And that might mean you're making 5 grand a month for the next 6 months before you can get up to 12 or 13 grand a month.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's what some competitors aren't willing to do. That's where a lot of people get stuck, where they're self-employed, so they're technically an entrepreneur, but they are stuck because they're not going to go to the next level. And I see that as dangerous, where it's like you want to keep something steady, but if you're not growing, you could also be moving backwards.
It becomes unreliable.
Yeah, like money melts away. Like we just don't know how far inflation will go. So if you $10,000 a month might be really good right now, but in 5 years, if that was your plan and you're still doing $10,000 a month and $10,000 a month worth $3,000 a month, I just don't know. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, and I sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, I said that's kind of a tangent, but that's just how my mind works.
No, but I like what you're saying, because you also mentioned carving out wealth, not just for yourself, but for those that work alongside you, and you know, an uncapped ceiling and things like that. And for me, as I'm getting into, hey, we have some employees, I have a business partner, that's the stuff that excites me. I like making money for myself, don't get me wrong, but being able to share that with other people and carving out a good job that lets people provide for their families, that gets me really excited to get up in the morning. And have you found the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of friends and family, and so I feel the pressure of their financial future. Like, that's just the reality of it, is like, I have friends and family on the team. If the business doesn't do well and I can't give them raises, like, that's on me. So I think there's a lot of pressure. I think the clock is always ticking. I know this business is going to keep growing, but it's just, can I grow it fast enough and well enough and efficient enough to keep them happy and help them achieve their goals? That's like a huge challenge for me.
If you're like me, you don't sleep at night because these wheels turn at about 2 a.m. sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. Yep. Last night was one of those nights. I don't have them very often, but yeah, you do have that pressure. But I think you also have to be able to turn it, like flip the switch, be with your family, turn it off. But you know, every once in a while, you'll get one of those nights.
Yep. So if you're watching, you're on this path of entrepreneurship, you own your own business, maybe you're starting to get an employee or two, and you feel that pressure, just know, like, 7 or 8 years in, it's still present. It still happens sometimes, and it's normal. It's a skill you learn to triage for yourself on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think for someone who's just getting started, like, this is a dogfight. I think a lot of people have unrealistic expectations of how long it's going to take to kind of get over the hump of, you know, achieving their goals. I always tell people, if you're not willing to put your head down for 4 or 5 years, it might not be, and maybe you find a better vehicle. We could talk about vehicles and how some vehicles are better than others. But for me, I look at most businesses, most service businesses, most real estate investing businesses, that's what I'm in. And yeah, it's a journey. It's not get rich quick. It will work if you apply fundamentals and put in the time, but yeah, this is a 4 to 5 year journey before this becomes something that's like, oh, this is starting to become like, I have a team, I have good marketing, I have good good history, reputation, things like that. So I feel like a lot of people overlook how long it's going to take, and it's a good measuring stick for if you should start a business is how long could you put your head down. And sometimes when people get to that 5 year mark and it's not working, they either need to pick a different vehicle or totally revamp their mindset and operation, reassess the demand for what they're doing. But most of the time, once they get to that mark, they're going to start to get some real traction.
Yeah. That's awesome advice. What would you say to somebody if they're at that 5 year mark and they're like, should I pick a different vehicle, things like that? Like, what questions did you ask yourself, or would you ask yourself in that situation?
I wouldn't ask myself anything, because at that point, I'm just so emotional about it. I would ask people I trust. I would say to a mentor or friend, like, how in demand is my business? Find the most successful entrepreneur you know, because I have friends where they put their heart and soul into their business, but their business is a poor vehicle, where it's like either the government is capping them, or what they're doing is really not that in demand, right? It's just a good idea, but it's just not going to work. And so if your people you trust tell you that your business is not in demand, that's the reality check that's really tough because you might have to start over. If they tell you it is in demand, then you got to fix your business. Like, whether that's, reading traction and applying those principles, or hiring a consultant or coach. That's something I didn't have for a long time, was a coach, but now I do pay for coaching. So I think those are kind of the two different ways that could go if you're not seeing success after 5 years.
Totally. I love the idea of reach out to somebody that you trust, find a mentor, and find a coach. I'm paying for coaching as well, because we kind of hit this ceiling in my business that we keep bumping up against it. We'll hit a new, slightly cooler revenue or whatever, but we're kind of just stuck right here.
Yeah.
And so we're paying for some coaching. We're saying, hey, what can we do? And we're focused on our operations and how do we make this smoother, more efficient, things like that. And I think that's great advice. If you're even not at 5 years, if you just kind of feel like, I'm stuck, what do I do now? Find somebody that's walked that path before and ask them if you can pay them to help you get past that.
Yeah, I think coaches are awesome, and I think they're worth paying for, but I also think just being humble and being willing to ask for help is a big deal too, because there's probably going to be one or two good people in your industry that are humble enough and approachable enough and just giving enough, where if you come to them with that attitude of, I want to grow, help me. And I think a lot of people will. Like, I have people that call me, or that I can call just to talk shop or exchange notes, and I think that's something I maybe learned too late, was either I was too stupid or too prideful to ask for help for free. And so I think even if one or two people say no, all you need is one or two people to say yes to change course in your whole career,
Totally. That's great advice. And we've had lots of great advice. I appreciate you sitting down. I don't want to keep it too long.
We're good, man. Once you get me going, I just nerd out on this stuff.
We'll change it to an hour-long format next. But last question I did want to ask, you've given people watching some really great advice. If you could go back to, teenage you, dad's handing you business cards, making them up for you, what advice would you give yourself as you're just getting it started, getting it off the ground, and really starting to dig into owning a business?
Yeah, great question. Because to be completely honest, until I was done playing sports, which I played in high school and then in college I played football at Dixie State, I wasn't my priority was never the business, right? It was always football, friends, chicks, try to pass class, take care of spiritual things. Business was a last priority for me until I was done with sports.
Yeah.
And so I think it'll be fun to try to teach my kids some of those business principles as they're coming up, maybe a little younger. I think advice I would give my younger self, I'd probably get organized with systems faster. I'm really glad that I had the experience of bootstrapping a company and really just starting from the bottom. We never took out any debt. We have debt on our real estate, but every truck we bought, we had to earn and scrap together the cash, and resources were really tight and really forced me to run an efficient business.
Yeah.
And so I think I wouldn't take that back, because I think it helped me learn a lot of good principles, but I do think I could have delegated and scaled a little bit sooner. I think that's a double-edged sword, because we learned a lot of good lessons by me staying in the business for so long, but things really started to pop once I started working on the business.
So, that higher level, take a bird's eye view and take time away from in the weeds with the client, things like that, to look at the business as a whole.
Yeah, and I think you'll end up serving more people that way. I'll tell you a funny little story. So yesterday I was talking to someone I do business with, and they happened to go to lunch with one of my competitors that day. And they're like, yeah, your competitor was talking big crap on you. And I was like, what? I don't have any enemies, you know, like we're good. And it was someone I don't even know, never interacted with once in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And what they were saying was, you know, he just sends his guys to do it.
Yeah.
Where this guy's still stuck in the business doing it himself, which is fine and it's a great thing. You got to start there.
Yeah.
But my thought on that is I was a good mover.
Mm-hmm.
I worked hard, paid attention, cared about the customer, really good communicator. But I have a vision to have a whole team of moving professionals that have better systems, better training, and a better culture than even when I was doing it all myself. And the cool thing about moving is it's never been a one-man job. So even all throughout, I've had a team. You have to have at least another person on your team to do anything with moving. And so I've always had a team, and I love like the idea of growing that team and helping. My true mission is to have every customer have a better experience without me there than when I was there. Yeah. And I've seen it come true. Like we've seen the training and systems and culture that we put in place. I can send a team out and have customers have a better experience than if I was there myself. And I think that's something that we're really trying to work towards, and that's kind of my thought yesterday when I heard that little exchange.
Yeah. And you've said this a couple times. You said our capacity to serve, right? I think that mindset is key in any business, but especially a service-based business like what you do. You know, you as a single person or you and one other guy can only be at a house at a time. But if you build an efficient team that cares about people, that wants to be there, is hardworking, as some of these things we talked about today, you know, like you said, the ceiling doesn't really exist on that. You could be in as many homes as you could realistically find and hire people for that fit your company.
Yeah, totally agree.
That's awesome. That's a great mindset. And so, guys, this was awesome. I hope that you guys watch this like 2 or 3 times. I'm going to be posting a lot of clips from this, I can already tell. But stick around. We are live every week with a new business here in Southern Utah. So Ben, thanks for joining me. Thanks for the advice, and thanks for letting me come by and visit with you today.
Oh, it was a blast. That was really fun. Thanks, man.
Absolutely. Well, we'll see you guys next week, and thanks for watching.
Thanks.
Awesome.